Lou Leon Guerrero, as well as our Lieutenant Governor of Guam, Joshua F. Tenorio. We have with us in the Zoom room, Director of the Department of Public Health and Social Services, Art St. Augustine, as well as our GMH Administrator, Lillian Perez-Posadas. From the Guam Memorial Hospital and our COVID-19 Medical Director, we have Dr. Jolene Uggan. And we also have from the State Surgeon Cell, Dr. Felix Cabrera. I want to go ahead and give the microphone to Governor Lou Leon Guerrero for her remarks.
Thank you, Crystal. 3 days ago, I announced the passing of 3 individuals due to COVID-19. As your governor, it is my duty to announce the 14th COVID-related death. He was a 59-year-old man with comorbidities, and he was admitted at GMH on August 25th due to respiratory failure. He tested positive for COVID-19. First Gentleman Jeff, Lieutenant Governor Josh, and I send our deepest condolences to his family and friends, and we mourn for everyone touched by this awful virus. Please join me in a moment of silence for the lives we lost to COVID-19. One more person with family, friends, and people who loved him. One person who still had a lot of living to do. To the people of Guam, early in the pandemic, I said, we must prepare for rough days ahead. But even then, I could not have imagined losing this many people to this virus so soon. Since declaring pandemic condition of readiness 1 on August 14, we have confirmed a total of 1,096 cases of COVID-19. This represents 70% of total number of confirmed cases since March. Our COVID census at the hospital is nearly 50, with over 10 people in ICU and 10 on ventilators. This time last week, we had 36 COVID patients, a nearly 39% increase in COVID hospitalization in only 7 days. And this does not include the 87 people who are there being treated for non-COVID ailments. We lost 9 more people to this virus, going from 5 COVID-related deaths in April to 14. That is a 180% increase. But the stories you haven't heard are from the doctors and the nurses. They have been working nonstop since March with seemingly no end in sight. Every day, they are walking into the line of fire and risking their lives to keep our patients safe. Before I was your governor, before I was at the bank or even a senator, I was a nurse in an ICU department. Decisions had to be made quickly, and we couldn't second guess ourselves. At times it was difficult. I saw many things I would never wish upon anyone. And these are moments you keep with you for the rest of your life. But I have not experienced anything like COVID. The stress placed upon GMH is nothing like we have seen before. People are being admitted quicker than they were in the beginning of this pandemic. This is because while the rate of COVID spread has plateaued due to our declaration of PCOR1, it has not yet begun to decline at the rate necessary to allow our healthcare system to fully recover. Remember that we have always said, while COVID can be deadly, its true danger is in making a large number of people need just enough care to be admitted at the hospital. In a short period of times, our beds may become so full of COVID patients. We may have no room to treat those injured by a car accident, stricken by stroke, or suffering from cancer. While few places have won absolute victory against COVID-19, we do know what losing looks like. It means we may force doctors to choose who should be treated because we lack the resources to do so. This is a fight we cannot afford to lose. For this reason, I have signed Executive Order 2020-30, which will extend the stay-at-home order for another week until noon, September 11th. For businesses, nothing changes. If you're currently able to operate, you can continue. If not, I ask that you please remain closed so we can continue our fight against this virus. Stay home, wear your mask, and social distance. You may not think these small actions can make a difference, but they do. Our doctors and nurses can't do this alone. They're no longer the front line. We are. And it is up to us to defeat COVID-19.
Thank you, Governor. Now I'll turn over the microphone to Lieutenant Governor Joshua F. Tenorio.
Thank you. I first want to join.
Before we begin, I just wanted to apologize that my mask was upside down and our Guam flag was upside down, and that's no intention at all on my part. So I apologize.
Thank you, Governor. Lieutenant Governor, you may continue.
Thank you, Crystal. Of course, I joined the governor and the first gentleman in giving our condolences to the family of our 14th COVID victim, and of course to remember all of the victims of this pandemic. I also want to join the governor in thanking all of the medical professionals and the frontliners that are waging this battle with us to reduce the spread and to bring down the number of sick people that we have in our hospital. But to the people of Guam, I want to thank you for your patience and your cooperation. But now we need your further attention and your further action to improve our situation and our current reality. Our reality is we have record number of cases, positive cases. We have record number of hospitalizations, and now we have record number of deaths. We already have a sick population here in Guam that is very susceptible to this virus. And we have community spread, especially amongst the younger demographic of Guam. I know that people are restless, scared, tired, and frightened, but we must also be very responsible and think about what is possible. And maybe I'll just take us back 76 years ago. Our greatest generation survived a 2.5-year enemy occupation, death, murder, forced march. Surely our people of Guam can overcome this current situation that we've been facing for the last 6 months. And so I ask all of you to please follow the orders. I ask you to be patient, and I ask you to please consider all of the things that you're going to be doing. It's Labor Day weekend, please stay home, reduce the amount of time that you spend with people, and use technology to continue your personal relationships. It's only a bit more time, and I'm very confident and optimistic that we'll be able to reduce the spread, reduce these numbers, and recover our healthcare system. And so I thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I'd now like to turn over to Dr. Felix Cabrera from the State Surgeon Cell for his presentation.
Thank you, Crystal. Just give me a moment as I share my screen here. So we'll start out with an overview of Guam's 7-day rolling averages for COVID-19 metrics. So our daily new cases, again, 7-day rolling average is at 48.1, with our test positivity rate at 10.7%. Our active hospitalizations in terms of the census, 7-day rolling average at 47.6, and then the COVID area risk score, or otherwise known as CAR score, is at 12.7. And so this gives us a look over the entire length of the pandemic. But zooming in to more recent 7-day rolling averages for COVID-19 metrics, you can see here at the points where we went from PCOR3 to PCOR1, and then when the stay at home executive order was enacted. So the important part here to note is, of course, that that we are seeing what we saw initially as a plateau in terms of the new cases, and that we're now seeing a downward trend. Now, even though we're seeing this downward trend, it is still quite high, and it is in the setting of a high test positivity rate. As a reminder that when you have a high test positivity rate, the actual incidence of COVID-19 in the community is likely much higher than what we're seeing here in the new cases. If we have a lower test positivity rate, then the more we can likely rely on what the new case numbers are telling us. So I'll move into this slide here that focuses more on Guam's 30-day island-wide COVID-19 hospital census, the ICU census, and new COVID-19 related deaths. So this has been updated in real time up into this hour. So for today, the island as a whole has 55 admitted COVID-19 patients. 48 of them are at GMH, and of those 48, 11 of them are ICU patients. 10 of them are on ventilators, and 15 of them are on hemodialysis. GRMC still has 5 patients that are COVID positive and are awaiting transfer to GMH. U.S. Naval Hospital, Guam, as of last report, was 2 non-ICU patients admitted there. And so in this graph here in the purple, you can see the overall census from a day-to-day basis. Again, this is not number of admitted, but the actual census. The red is the ICU census, which is primarily at Guam Memorial Hospital. And then in each black column here is the number of deaths for that day. And unfortunately, as mentioned earlier, we lost another Guamanian to COVID-19. This slide is the review that was shown in a previous press conference where we had a hospitalization trajectory. Now, this in particular slide was the trajectory that was created on August 28. But what you see here in the gray line is the actual census for the island. And so initially we were trending above the red, and the red is the more, just to say it simply, was the more aggressive trajectory, and one that we, were quite afraid of matching, or in this case here, early toward the end of August, we were actually above that. But thankfully, we turned and we started following more along the green, which is the less aggressive trajectory that we had, and so we've been more closer to that. And this slide illustrates again which I'll go into in another slide, that Friday today, September 4, was the day that we were hoping would be the beginning of the peak, or at least a plateau of the hospital census for the island, and that was at the time when the population mobility dropped below 80%, which is 15 days after that. Now, this slide here is it's been adjusted for today based on the cases that we have had. If for whatever reason things pick up again and go out at a much higher rate, then we'd be looking again at the red trajectory line here. But as if the past week has been any indication for moving forward, is that we would hopefully at worst only be at the green line. Ideally, we start dropping below that. And if that's the case, then indeed our decreased mobility on the island is likely a big mitigating factor in reducing the number of hospitalized COVID-19 patients. And this is my last slide here. And so this is a more focused on Guam's population mobility in relationship with COVID-19 new cases and hospitalized census. So this teal line here in solid is a 7-day rolling average of Guam's mobility, where 100% is baseline that was determined pre-COVID. So this is prior to March 15. We had actually gotten back to 100% toward the end of PCOR3. But as the cases started rising, people have reflectively started decreasing their mobility. And then after PCOR1 was declared, mobility continued to decline. And then by August 20th, we hit that 80% mark, and we have continued to drop below that down into the 60 percentage marks. And we hit a part there, but there has been an increase in mobility again, now still below 80%, but it is technically increasing, and this data is up until September 1st. But as you can see, in relationship with the daily new cases starting to take a turn downward, and then of course the hospitalization still on an upward trend here. And that's the last of my slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cabrera. Now I'd like to open the floor for questions. Again, I remind you that we have also on our panel, we have the Director of Public Health, Art St. Augustine. We have Lillian Perez-Posadas from GMH, as well as Dr. Jolene Uggen, our COVID-19 Medical Director, and again, Dr. Felix Cabrera joining Governor and Lieutenant Governor. Nick Delgado from Hit Radio 100, you may ask your question.
Hey, Hafa day, everyone. First off, I want to share my condolences as well for another loss. And Governor, thank you for making these tough decisions. But with that said, you've asked the people to stay home, to wear their masks, to socially distance. You've ordered all non-essential businesses to shut down for the last nearly 3 weeks. And the numbers aren't really going down. The hospital almost at capacity, as we've heard from Dr. Cabrera. And as you stated, based on yesterday's numbers, it doesn't look like this has in totality worked. So do we continue to stay at home and hope that it just changes, or is there a plan B?
So we have to stay the course. We have to continue staying home. We have to make sure that we continue having less contact with people. We have to make sure that exposure is decreased and the frequency or the capacity of transmission is minimized. So yes, we have to stay the course, Nick, and even more so. And we even have to be a lot more strict in terms of social distancing when you're out there for your essential activities. I have seen pictures, people have sent me pictures where public places are not social distancing. And that's a concern. It's a concern. Everybody, private sector, public sector, need to enforce those directives. And so if you are in a public facility and you are getting your essential service and you're not social distancing, I expect the manager or the supervisor of that public facility to enforce the social distancing. So everyone is responsible to making us win this battle. And so, yes, you stay the course. You know, it's if you see Dr. Cabrera's numbers, we're starting to maybe make a little slow turn. And we cannot lose any of that advantage that we have today. And in order to make sure that we continue with that turn and that decrease, we need to stay the course. I know sometimes we think that it's not working, but we have to really be patient to see the results of this. It's mitigation efforts, Nick, that other places have done, and it worked. And I know that it will work because we were there before when we first started this pandemic. and everybody rallied and everybody did what they're supposed to do. And we were able to contain the virus for 3 months. And so, you know, people are saying, well, what do we do? Do we continue this way? If we have to continue wearing our masks, social distancing, and sanitizing while we're out there, we have to do that until more permanent kinds of solutions occur. And so people also say, well, you know, maybe we just open everything and we just become a big virus place. Okay. Well, I don't want to risk that because I don't want more people to get sick and more people to die. That's the bottom line. This virus kills people. We have seen it. And I know there's arguments out there about, you know, the flu, right? And oh, you know, this can't be any worse than the flu. The coronavirus is a cold virus. It is not the cold. It's the coronavirus, another strain of the family of coronavirus, but it's not the cold and it's not the flu. So yes, I ask the people to please be more patient. I know it's hard. It's a struggle. But at the end, I know we are going to contain this virus. The whole world, Nick, the global picture. There's over like 25 million people who have this positive case throughout the whole world. It's not just Guam. It's the whole world that's facing this pandemic.
Nick, your follow-up?
My follow-up question, Suicide Awareness Month, we've seen the announcements of that, and yet statistics are showing that there's been more suicide deaths in the past 3 months compared, and so just wanted to get your response to that.
Yes, Nick, and it's very sad that that is happening. I have great appreciation for the professionals at the Behavioral Wellness Center, and they inform me that the hotline that they put forward is very successful, and they've been able to talk to people who are very anxious about, you know, very scared. And I also ask families who are in touch with these people to help support them. And if they need any kind of help, please call our hotline, call someone, call your medical doctor, call your significant other, call people that you trust to help you work through this. Because it's only through our interpersonal relationships and communications that we can help people go through this very emotional and very high stress and very anxious producing situation.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
The Guam Daily Post, we have Heidi Eugenio Gilbert.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
So Saipan has repeatedly stated that it will be getting the COVID-19 vaccine. What discussions have you or public health had about being included in the distribution of vaccines this fall? Is there a distribution facility ready on Guam?
Well, the distribution probably will go through public health, as most vaccines do. My discussions go beyond CDC. My discussions go beyond public health. My discussions went as far as the Secretary of the Department of Defense, Secretary Mark Esper, who is the chair of the committee of the coronavirus task force that deals with vaccines. And he has informed me that, and you hear this from the leaders in the White House, that there is possibility, a very strong possibility, that there might be a vaccine by the end of this year. And my request was to make sure that we are on that list of distribution. And he assured me that we will be on that list of distribution. So, you know, I am assured by the highest person of the Department of Defense, and who is also very involved in the work of vaccines. So I will hold him to his word. You will get that assurance from me, and that we will make sure that we are on that list.
Heidi, your follow-up question?
Governor, still related to the vaccine. Does this mean that anyone can get the vaccine? Can they just present themselves to the clinics and have it? How
I
is
don't
it
know
gonna
what
work?
I don't know what the eligibility is. I have no idea. I don't know if Art is aware, but like, you know, I don't know if I need to take the vaccine because I've been positive. And, you know, I developed the antigens and the antibodies. So I don't know if I would be eligible to take the vaccine because, you know, there's studies done that if you have been infected with the virus, you become immune and you're not infectious and you can't be infected. So there's some studies out there that say this, but I am not aware. I'm pretty sure there's going to be, like I said, eligibility criteria. I don't know. Art, do you have any update on that?
Just to share with everyone this morning that when and should we get the vaccine, we have protocols in place, and CDC will provide us the guidelines. And what we expect in those guidelines would also be governor and lieutenant governor who would be eligible and what we would be looking for. And so we don't have those guidelines today, but once we receive them, we will definitely have them available for public consumption. But we do have protocols in place as we do with the annual flu vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Moving on, Mariana's Business Journal, Maureen Maritita.
Buenas, everybody. I have my first question would be on, so we have one more week of restrictions under PCOR1. So if the numbers level out and start to reduce, at what point would we open further, and what is that going to look like? Are we going to go gradually, or are we going to are we dependent on the numbers? This time a week ago you were able to ease life for our business community. So would you be able to do that slowly even if we stayed in PCOR1, if the numbers showed that was possible too?
Sure. You know, it'll be driven by, are we meeting the 4 criteria that we had used as the basis of metrics? And it will be driven by what our number of new cases are. And it will be driven by the ability of our hospital healthcare system to provide the quality of care for treatment of those that need the treatment as a result of COVID-19. So those are the things that we would be looking at. What I see is that, again, a gradual and slow lifting of restrictions like we did the last time, Maureen, and to continue looking and monitoring what the results are as a consequence of lifting restrictions. So that's what I would see. And of course, I would gradually open those activities, those businesses that will not be that is not as a high risk exposure transmission environment. And of course, I will work very closely with the PAG and public health and my executive team to move forward on whatever strategies that we decide on.
Okay, so for my second question, you said you'd gradually open those businesses where there's not a high risk exposure. Do you think we should be looking at the data a bit more? I mean, and deciding exactly where those areas are. I mean, we have
Yes.
a pretty good picture of Guam, to some extent the military, but we have not looked really deeply into, say, certain professions that seem to be COVID-free, or certain, you know,
Yeah.
pockets within certain business sectors.
Yes. So we are now looking at data that can give us a better target, right? So with the contact tracing and with the investigations, we have a much better picture about where these contacts are happening and what are the sources of places where these infections happen. So as we get that data and as we refine it more, it certainly is going to give us some direction in terms of what businesses to lift restrictions and so forth. So
All right.
you're absolutely right. It will be again driven by data.
Thank you,
Okay,
Maureen.
thank you.
Pacific Daily News, Steve Lampiaco.
Yes, hi, good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Steve.
Just to clarify one point, so the 14th COVID victim, that person died today?
Yes, at about 9 o'clock.
Okay, and then I also wanted to clarify the relationship between PCOR1 and the stay-at-home order. Do they start and end at the same time, or is there different end dates for PCOR1 as opposed to the stay-at-home order?
No, they're about the same time. You know, you do. I know that we had. I was just looking at the time frame that we had done PCOR1 August 14th, and we didn't really do stay at home till August 21st, I believe, when we saw that our numbers were in the 3-digit. So moving forward, we may stay in PCOR1 for a while, but we may also lift more activities, more businesses, and give people much more opportunities to go out there and do their business. And it may not just be essential, it may be other things. So.
And also, what's the status of the skilled nursing unit in Barrigada, and how is that going to be used?
Oh, the skilled nursing facility?
Yeah.
It is ready. And maybe Lillian can give more information about that, but we are planning to move patients shortly. Lillian, you want to jump in and?
Sure. Thank you, Governor. And thank you, Steve, for that question. I know everybody's asking about that facility. It is ready for occupancy. The temporary chiller has been in place for a week now, and it's keeping the facility comfortably cool. The various departments have already pretty much stocked the facility with the medical equipment and, whatever other medical supplies that are needed. The linens and the beds are ready. We're going to occupy a wing first, and that's that has 20 beds in that area. So the plan is to try and get the patients who are here, who are very stable as far as their COVID condition, who are not needing supplemental oxygen. And so that is the plan. The challenge that we continue to be faced with is the staffing. So what we're looking at is the staff that are currently manning the Care 3 unit where these COVID medical patients are at, who are stable. We would then have someone up at the SNF, the CIF, to then start receiving these patients as we move the patients up to the CIF. So that is the plan, and we're going to try and get that started today. That's our target date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Johanna Salinas from Pacific Island Times.
Half a day, everyone.
Half a day, Joanna.
Okay, so I would like to ask about the enforcement of the lockdown. So how will you, Governor Leon Guerrero, enforce this new directive, and how can you make sure that people who uh that people won't be able to violate it before compared to last time?
Right. So we have our public health, and we also have our law enforcement people out there patrolling public places that are closed, and they would enforce. They will ask people to leave, and of course, use whatever um, rational, common sense actions to try and ask people to stay home. So basically, the enforcement is going to be a lot more on our responsibility, but also we will be using our law enforcement people to enforce those areas that are closed, and we'll ask people to leave. And will be cited if it violates the legal mandate.
Okay. So, my next question would be about the businesses. So, how many businesses lost their licenses for violating directives?
I don't know if there has been a business that lost their license. I know that there's been businesses that have been closed because of danger to the sanitation and so forth. I don't believe, and maybe Art can jump in, but I don't believe we've closed any businesses. I know we have counseled businesses. I mean, sorry, I don't know if their licenses have been lost, but I know that we have closed businesses, their operations. Is there
Yes,
anything there to
absolutely.
add?
No, actually, Governor, you are on track. Environmental health goes out and they really want to work with the businesses, but in line with saying that, they are also ensuring the compliance of the executive order and the public health guidance. So we do have, for example, failed to enforce mandatory use of masks, but again, it's working with the businesses to remind them that these, what may be considered small steps, little steps, are critical as all or in total effort to mitigate our situation here with COVID-19. So it's not so much that they're going out there to do a closing of businesses unless it was absolutely necessary. And again, as the governor stated, the closure of business would probably be more based on non-compliance with health regulated establishment requirements and regulations. But it's definitely to work with the community. And you have heard of some businesses being closed. What they find sometimes is the business hasn't renewed perhaps their sanitary permit. And that would be the basis for the closure, not necessarily because they're not in compliance with the executive order. But what brought them out is the executive order to ensure compliance. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
UAM, Mr. Lecanto. Nestor from KUAM.
Sorry. Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to see if I can get more information about the patient who passed away. Condolences to the family. But Governor, you said that he had been admitted to GMH on the 25th of August for respiratory failure. Was he one of the ones that were on the ventilator? He or she? I'm not sure who the sex of the patient, but was that a person on a ventilator? And did they contract COVID while at the hospital?
No, well, I don't know if they contracted while at the hospital, but I do know that when you get admitted or you go through ER, that you get tested as part of the protocol. And when the individual was tested, he was positive. So my understanding also was he was one of the individuals that was on the ventilator.
Lillian, would you like to add to that? Or Dr. Jolene?
Oh, I can answer. I think Dr. Jolene may be caught up with other calls with regards to the COVID patients who are critically ill.
No, she's
So,
right there.
Oh,
She's
okay,
right
go
there.
ahead. Okay, Doc.
Dr. Jolene, can you unmute yourself?
So he actually was not ventilated. I apologize, Governor. He was not ventilated. However, he was on a non-invasive positive pressure ventilation. So he had a CPAP mask on.
Okay.
So, Dr. Jolene, so we don't know if he was positive when he was admitted or.
He was tested positive on admission. So he was Abbott positive on admission.
Okay, thank you. So, Governor, my second question is, as you know, most of the pushback that you're currently getting is coming from businesses, the business community. A lot of them don't feel it's fair that they've been labeled as non-essential businesses, and yet, and personally, I was out this morning, and I was driving to the grocery store, and it seemed like it was business as usual. A lot of cars out there, and you walk into the grocery, and there's a lot of people milling about. Everyone wearing their masks, of course, but why not open up more, pay more attention to opening up businesses like beauty salons or dine-in at restaurants, because they're suffering. A lot of businesses are saying they're facing closure, and we're taking this 1 week at a time, and we don't know if on September 11th we're going to extend for another week.
Right.
So, do you think you should consider taking a look more at reopening these other businesses that are currently non-essential, as long as they don't promote, because I think what you're looking at is congregating a lot of people in a single place, right?
First of all, let me just say that I am really disappointed if people are still out there milling around and that it's business as usual, because it isn't business as usual. Not when you have numbers in the 40s, 70s of new cases, or that you've increased your deaths for over more than 59% in a period of less than a week. It's not business as usual, Nestor. And so I am disappointed that people out there are not taking this very seriously. I would love to open businesses, but my main priority right now, Nestor, as you know, is to decrease the spread of this COVID virus and to decrease deaths in our community and to decrease sick people in our community. So opening other businesses that are not essential will not happen this week. And as you know, in the past, we were slowly lifting businesses as we saw the numbers where we felt that we had contained and controlled this COVID virus. That's the same thing that we're going to be doing, is looking at the numbers, looking at the percentage of the positivity rate, looking at the capacity of the hospital, looking at making sure that, we're not, that we are stopping and slowing the spread in the community. And so, yes, the economy and businesses is a big concern. But as I have always said, my priority is the health of our people. And it's not just me that's responsible for doing this. It's everybody, every one of us. Like Dr. Manglonia said, you're the front line. You're the people that's going to make this COVID be contained. And so if they're milling around, then, I ask them to please take this very seriously, because it's not, you saw it, Nestor, you turn around and you know more people that's positive than you did 3-4 months ago. It's all over. It's very rampant in the community. That's a very serious thing. And like I said, this virus kills. We've seen it. So yes, you know, the community, the economy is very concerning to me. But as I've said, we can bring back our economy. We can't bring back the loss of lives. We can help prevent the loss of life, but we cannot bring back the loss of life. Ask those families and loved ones that were affected by the loss of their loved ones. This extension is not going to change in terms of what we have done in the last week. And as we continue on, of course, I am monitoring the numbers, and of course, I will be lifting restrictions as we move along. We've done that. That was our strategy from the very beginning. I'm sorry, Lieutenant Governor.
No, I just wanted to add, Nestor, that, you know, I think that, you know, it seemed this lockdown's been very balanced. I'll just point out that a lot of the other U.S. jurisdictions heavily reliant on tourism that have been affected, especially by increase in positive cases, primarily coming from the United States, are all in similar or more restrictive lockdowns. That includes the state of Hawaii, which their first term ends on September 9th, and they'll have to consider the U.S. Virgin Islands on September 8th, Puerto Rico on September 11th. And I just wanted to add, for example, with bars and dine-ins, you know, the governor took a very strategic risk. It was a risk to slowly and structurally reopen. But in certain states, dine-in is not allowed. State of Arizona, state of New York, bars are not open in many other places. And so I just wanted to stress and emphasize to members of the business community. And I understand and I know that you're struggling and that your employees are scared and worried about their jobs. But the sooner that we get our numbers down and we recover the health of the people, the more normal that we'll be able to try and pursue the new normal. But I do want to say, and if you want to compare us with other jurisdictions, I think that the governor's been making a very structured and balanced decision. She took a risk, and unfortunately, because of the increase in the U.S. And the travelers that came in, especially for funerals, that ended up passing it on and sometimes killing their relatives. It's very serious, and so I understand the pressure. I see it. We're not immune. We listen. We understand the frustration, but like I said, we have to focus on the health of everybody. And that's something that is not going to take the backseat to anything else. After this, we will look at the economic health of the island and continue to find ways to try and recover as fast as we can.
Thank you, Nestor. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Next, we have from K57, May Habib.
Half a day, Governor. Half a day to everybody on the panel, and thank you all for your time. You know, DOD has, through FEMA's approval, some temporary staff here on the island helping out at GMH. They're detailed here for 30 days. And the point is that they're sort of serving as a stopgap for the immediate need, because GMH is really at the brink here, but that in that time, we're meant to find longer term solutions for the island. What is the planning like for longer term solutions in terms of our medical personnel, our needs, especially with budget cuts? And, you know, Governor, you previously saying that all our CARES Act funding has been allotted. What's the long-term solution here?
So Lillian could speak more on it, but the long-term solution, of course, is to get staffing on a much more permanent level. And I know Lillian is aggressively working with FEMA representatives and also with other agencies and organizations to provide the staffing needs. As far as, you know, with the budget cuts, although there are budget cuts, I will make sure that we provide the necessary funding and to both public health and GMH so that there will be the staffing level that is needed to provide the public services. And even in this whole pandemic crisis, I will make sure that public health, who is the lead agency and actually the overall authority in this coronavirus pandemic, will have the resources necessary to provide the services for our people's protection. Leo, you might want to add more to that in terms of more permanent plans for staffing.
Yes, thank you, Governor, and thank you, May, for that question. It's a really good question. And yes, we have been continuously trying to recruit and retain nurses locally. We have used a recruiting agency from Washington State who provides us with experienced critical care nurses for our ER and for our ICU. And they, you know, on a regular ongoing basis, they do provide us whenever we request. Another option that we're looking at, and we're going to be having a conference call this afternoon at 1 o'clock, is another agency who can send us, you know, yesterday when I spoke with that person, with the director, she said that she has about 100 nurses that she can send to Guam by next week. So we're working out the details of that project this afternoon. But longer term, we have a University of Guam School of Nursing. They graduated 26 graduates in May. We've recruited 14 of those 26 as graduate nurses, and they're here on board. We're mentoring them, and that hopefully when they take the NCLEX, they pass it successfully. So that's another, you know, infusion of 14 registered nurses who hopefully will be here, you know, for a longer term in the hospital or in Guam, because, you know, they're from here. They're local people, and they completed their program here at the University of Guam. And so that's one option. We've started orienting and training DOE school nurses and hoping that, you know, we can keep them on board as part-time nurses, staff nurses who can then fill in some of the shifts and some of the hours, because they're here on Guam and they are Government of Guam employees who can do part-time service here at the hospital. So those are some of the things that we are looking at to really increase the recruitment and the retention of staff nurses. Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you. My follow-up, likely to the governor, I guess, who would answer this. I understand that the Gov Guam was trying to find an isolation facility as well. So we consolidated everybody for a quarantine facility. You know, there's conversations about the emergency medical shelter as well, and having that for a negative pressure facility. But also there's an effort for an isolation facility, which would likely be a hotel. I'm just wondering, with the SNU now basically up and open, is there still that need, and who would be at the hotel versus who would be at the SNU?
Right. So yes, there is still a need for an isolation facility. And yes, we have located, and actually we are already moved into the one isolation facility. And so there is still that need, even though SNU is going to be also a step down unit, because there's people that don't necessarily need hospitalization, and they're and they have to be isolated. And a lot of times their family environment or their home environment doesn't allow for the isolation, or that maybe there are family relatives in the home that might be very vulnerable and fragile to the coronavirus if they get infected, and you don't want that to happen. So there's a lot of reasons other than hospitalization. And so, yes, we still need an isolation facility. And yes, we have consolidated. And I think that's working really good, because our resources are now consolidated. Efficiency is much better. Whatever limited resources we have are used in a greater impact. So I hope that answers your question.
It does definitely. Sorry, can you identify the the isolation facility that has just been contracted and that we're moving into?
I think it's the Bayview, the Bayview Hotel.
Okay, thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you, May. Chris Barnett from KUAM's The Link. Chris, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Half a day, Governor.
Have a day, Chris.
Governor, you know, many in the community from, you know, elected leaders to the average Joe and Josefa Cruzes out here have been very critical about the lack of planning by the government of Guam for this pandemic. I think someone was telling me one of the way they characterize it is back when we were getting zeros and ones in our test results, it almost seemed like we abandoned ship on things. And so we see this lack of planning in things like the SNU, where it takes, you know, months to fix an aircon. We see the lack of planning with public health, where we're in the second surge and they can't conduct the kind of mass testing that, you know, is part of the triggers that move us from, you know, PCOR1 to PCOR2. They didn't anticipate the need. People want to get tested. So, you know, this weekend we're going to test 200 people and it's already filled up. So, on that note, with the planning, and again, I could provide more examples, but I know you're pressed for time. I was speaking with several members who are in 3 of your working groups, and I remember when you came out with these working groups, there was one that was an economic working group, there was another one that was a recovery panel of advisors, I believe. But different people in these different groups have told me that they haven't met in weeks, and in the economic working group's case, it's been 5 weeks. So while I understand that you eloquently defended your position about, you know, not allowing more businesses to reopen now, how would you respond to this criticism that we kind of gave up on planning beyond this pandemic? If we have all these groups and all these great minds that you were so proud to bring together, aren't even sitting down to discuss the road ahead after the pandemic?
Right. So in this situation, Chris, my attention was fully on the acute situation. I had to step in there and make sure that we put everything in place that is already in place, and that we've enhanced those situations so that we can slow down right away. We are not recovering right now. We are responding to a crisis. That's what we're doing right now. I am very thankful for the groups, and I am keeping in touch with some of the members of that group. The travel group has been meeting with the PAG, the Physicians Advisory Group, who then communicate with me. The economic recovery through Ricky and also through David John are talking to me about what the concerns are. So although we're not meeting in a meeting environment, but I am communicating with some of these people, and they're the ones that are running. The other thing I wanted to mention about planning, Chris, this pandemic is something that's been unprecedented. There is no playbook on this pandemic. It's the same that we are experiencing now as we are experiencing in the United States, as we have experienced in South Korea, as has been experienced in Italy, as has been experienced in Brazil, the United Kingdom. Everyone will tell you that this pandemic is unprecedented and there was no playbook to go by. Someone even told me, one of the governors told me that it's like flying an airplane and you are creating the airplane while you're flying it. Everybody, this virus was very unknown. It was very unpredictable. They didn't know exactly what this virus was about. So to say that public health was not planning and to say that GMH was not planning, I think it's a totally misrepresentation of what these people have been doing so hard in the last 6 months. Their contact tracing has been developed and they are evolving as we go along. And they learn from experience and they learn from other guidelines and standards throughout the world. So the planning is there. The familiarity of the disease is not there. The evolution of the disease changes quickly and overnight. So whatever plans there are that you may have, changes by the day. Look at the hospital. We had 3 census patients, and almost overnight we went up to 30. Then we went up to 48. We went up as high as 55. Right? So even at the hospital, we have 3 people on ventilators, and between 3 to 6 p.m., we had 6 that needed ventilators. So there is plans. Plans have to change as the virus evolves and as the circumstances evolve. So you talk about SNU. Lillian knew SNU needed a chiller. She had temporary chillers there to help cool it. It didn't work. So now she's effectuated her emergency powers to buy one or to lease one. I don't remember all the other ones that you mentioned, Chris, but even in public health with the mass testing, right? So yeah, we are prepared for the testing. We have test kits in the thousands. So yes, they were bombarded with all this mass testing, and you're right. The personnel and the staff was not there to run 1,500 tests in 2 days. We used all the machines we could. We used all the outside resources we could. We used private clinics, and we tried our very humanly possible effort to get them out. In a matter of 6 days, we're up to date. So I don't think that there was no planning. I have to disagree. I have to disagree vehemently that there was no planning. There was planning. The plans have to change quickly and rapidly. And we used every tool we could. I used my emergency service powers. Lillian used her emergency powers. Art used his emergency powers to get the resources, to have a staff come in here, Chris, in a matter of maybe 4 or 3 days after asking for staff. And yes, we were looking at that very closely. And Romanoni and I have been discussing it every day. So everybody knew that we were going to ask for the staff. And once we asked for the staff, they acted quickly. So within a matter of 3 days, now we have over 11 nurses. So I don't think that's a right description of our medical and healthcare and public health institutions who have worked very feverishly, tirelessly to protect our island.
Thank you, Governor. I'm not criticizing public health or the doctors because they're not the ones who are, but they're not the ones who are supposed to plan. That's your job.
No,
and when we talk about
people that own the situation, plan the situation, Chris. I am there to guide them, lead them, and as a resource. But I can't plan for the hospital. I can't plan for Dr. Jolene's unit. I can't plan for Art's environmental health. I'm not the expert. They do. So your criticism does impact them.
Well, I'm sorry if you think that. But again, just going back to what I'd asked initially, I was talking, I did provide those examples where you're right. I mean, it is unprecedented, but the fact remains we didn't prepare.
We
And to a lot of
did.
people,
We
that means we didn't
prepared
plan.
as best as
But-
we could, given the circumstances.
And Gov, just going back to like the economic working group, I mean, you're saying that we're in response to a disaster, but the people in the economic working group aren't out here saving lives. They should be meeting and planning beyond, I mean, in my opinion, beyond the
So,
pandemic.
you know, Chris, there's no reason why they can't meet and plan. I don't have to be there in a meeting for them to meet and plan. They were given the authority to be part of an economic recovery plan. There's no reason that they can't be meeting and developing a recovery. We have a recovery plan already.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why they can't get together and focus on economic recovery. They don't have to wait for me to meet with them. That's
Well, maybe they
their
just-
authority, and that's their responsibility. I expect that they'll come and say to me, Governor, this is our economic recovery that we just established. That would be such a great help for me.
It would.
It
And I
would.
mean, Gov, I mean, I'm just saying, like, when I hear from the members themselves that they haven't met, I mean, maybe you just need to tell them, like, hey, guys, what are you doing? Get together and meet. We need this plan.
Hey, these people are supposed to be leaders in the economy. Why do I have to tell them that they have to meet?
Because it's your working group, that's why.
Jolene Torres from the Pacific News Center.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
get my second question, though.
That was more than 2 questions. Thank you so much.
Actually, we were exchanging, Crystal. I didn't ask a second question. The governor was responding to what I had asked. So that being said, I want to, Gov, if I could just, if you could address, please, because you know I didn't ask a second question. We were just having a conversation. My second question is, how do you address this? There seems to be a lot of mixed messaging, right? And we saw it when you declared this first lockdown. You said, you know, we're locked down, nobody can go to the beaches. And then there was a lot of clamoring and you ended up caving on that, right? And then we see also this mixed messaging today where we have Dr. Cabrera throwing out his projection, and you also yourself said that the numbers are declining. While the numbers of
No, I
positive
said the
cases
numbers are plateauing. They're not declining as fast as I would like it to be. And
Gov, I
Dr.
mean-
Cabrera's numbers showed a plateau
Right.
and showed a slow declining.
But
The
Governor,
other one about the beaches, Chris, okay. I never said people could not go out and exercise. I never said that. And I said that in one of my press conferences. I said the public beaches and the parks are closed for social gatherings, right? And so they thought that, oh, they can't exercise because I closed the beaches. I never said that they couldn't exercise. Anyway, I think I answered your
Gov,
question, so we should
Gov,
move on.
just on the testing though, right? So Gov, on the testing, you guys keep saying that the numbers have plateaued, but we're testing far fewer people, but we have the same test positivity
We have
rate.
not tested far fewer people.
We're
Chris,
testing
we have
fewer
tested
people than we were last week, Bob.
1,596. Okay, I think we need to move on. It's not fair for other people that are here that
But you
wants to
haven't
ask
answered
the question.
okay.
So
Thank you,
thanks,
Gov.
Chris.
Governor Lou.
Thank you
So-
for the conversation.
Okay, see you, Gov.
Moving on.
Be safe.
My question is in regards to asymptomatic individuals. I wanted to confirm the number of, or the percentage of asymptomatic individuals reflected in the total number of our testing. I believe a number was thrown out to be about 40 to 60% of those who are positive were asymptomatic. Now, Dr. Nguyen and Dr. Lombard have both come to the table to say that a large number of asymptomatic individuals also fall under the 20 to 40 age group bracket, and that these are the people that are, you know, not feeling they're not feeling symptoms, and therefore they're still going out there into our community. Can you confirm what the percentage of asymptomatic individuals is and how they impact our infection rate?
Okay, I don't have that off the top of my head. I don't know if Dr. Cabrera or Art has those numbers. Any one of you guys have that number?
So we don't have the specific numbers for that. And so the reality is that you're asking what is the exact prevalence of asymptomatic COVID-19 patients on Guam, and there's no way to know that for sure. And the best that we have is the ones who test and those that actually state that they're symptomatic, and there's varying degrees of symptomatic. But what we know very clearly, and there's a lot of data throughout the world in many different areas, is that approximately 50% of all people who get COVID-19 get it from somebody who did not have symptoms, either somebody who never is going to develop symptoms or just hasn't developed symptoms yet. And so that's a very, very important number, 50%. And because of that, that's why there's a variety of testing in different brackets, so to speak, in different populations and we go through that, and you need that variation so that you can capture as many as you can. And because again, it's these asymptomatic persons who are more likely to be super spreaders in a lot of ways if they're going around, and not that necessarily that they themselves are super spreaders with the virus, but that their behavior makes them super spreaders.
All right. And so, well, my second question has to do with another, I guess, group of individuals that we haven't. NC has confirmed one positive case of a pregnant mother who did contract COVID during her pregnancy. And of course, the concern is raised, being that with fetal development and even after the baby's born, what impacts the virus may have. So my question is, what is the government doing to ensure that pregnant women who suffer or are infected with COVID during their pregnancies, what support and direction will public health be giving them, not only throughout their pregnancy, but thereafter, when the studies into the impacts of coronavirus infection on a fetus going. Hello?
You were coming in really slow, and at times didn't hear much of what you were saying, but I guess you're asking what is the government doing to guide a pregnant person who is positive in terms of healthcare and medical monitoring, and what impact does that have on the fetal development of the baby? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, Governor. What is public health doing to...
Yeah, it's really bad, but I'll try to address your concerns.
Pregnancies, because
as far as the pregnant,
Go ahead,
okay,
Governor.
as far as the pregnant mother, and the doctors can chime in. As far as the pregnant mother who becomes positive or is tested positive, I would think that the protocol is the same as anyone who is tested positive. They would have to isolate the mother, of course, and would have to be monitored through their OB doctor. But I would think that the public health guidelines would be to isolate and to monitor daily, and to educate that if there are symptoms of, cough and shortness of breath, fever, so forth, to call their doctor. I don't know if Dr. Jolene is still on, and Dr. Cabrera is there. To talk more about the fetal development. I don't know.
Sure. I have just a little knowledge on it in terms of what's been studied. So, there have been many women who have been pregnant and have given birth to very healthy babies who continue to thrive, and themselves as moms continue to thrive. Now, what's tough is that, especially early on in this pandemic, is that especially here on Guam in March, for example, nobody had ever been pregnant and got and had COVID in the first trimester and then had given birth. And so I don't know if any of those persons exist right now on Guam, as we're 6 months into this pandemic now. And so it remains to be seen, but so far, that it in all likelihood, it's, that it's been not as much of a significant risk as we initially thought. Now, the more the concern actually, not so much in the fetal development, but what happens postpartum, or in other words, after birth, and because baby has a weakened immune system and uses the antibodies that mom had passed on and is still trying to build up their own. So it's more about that part. If a mother who contracted COVID-19 and was taking care of a newborn, those are some of the concerns. But again, it's standard support that we would want that mother and baby to have, and a lot of that comes from the family side, but with proper guidance from their physician or their providers specifically, and that's what we would advocate, and we would support that, and that's no different than anybody else on Guam seeking care in terms of making that available.
Thank you, Jolene. Governor, for your closing remarks.
Yes, thank you so much. It is always difficult to announce a loss of lives, and certainly that is a very difficult job of mine. I am going to call the family and offer my condolences and sympathy, which I have done for the last 13 other victims that have been taken from their loved ones because of this coronavirus. And it is a very, it's a very sad event to know that. And as your governor, I am doing everything, and I will do everything I can possibly do to prevent further losses to families and to friends. And I will do everything I can to help and support and give the resources of those agencies that are the lead agencies to help protect our island, GMH, Public Health, and all the other supporting agencies, the clinics, and so forth. And this I will assure our people that we will continue to stand up our healthcare delivery system. And this is why I am again extending the stay at home. And yes, there are criticisms out there. There are the naysayers out there. But my focus is to make sure that our people are safe and to make sure our people are healthy. My focus is to make sure that we have a healthy community. When we have a healthy community, believe me, we will have a healthy economy. And so I just want to thank everyone out there for their struggles, for their sacrifices, for their patience, for their prayers, for their encouragement, for everything that they do to help lift up everybody and to help support everybody. That's what we need to do. We need to come together as one community, come together as one united front, and say we will rally all of our forces to beat this virus. When we are a divided community, we will be weak. And I don't want us to be that. We have to be strong. We have to be committed. We have to be persistent. And we have to be tenacious. And sometimes that is draining on our emotional health, is draining on our lives with our families, with our friends, with our community. But it is something we have to do. Otherwise, we will be one big sick community with victims lost and families much, much, much more disrupted. So I see it as a quick injection of some force so that we can, like the Lieutenant Governor said, go back to some normalcy in our lives. So I just want to say thank you again for your support and your commitment. And please stay home, wear your mask, and love your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Lieutenant Governor, would you like to say anything?